liability case. Would that not be true?
That's true.
That is true. Madam Vice Chair, is it possible that some of these states with strict liability limit that strict liability to where the injury took place in a municipality within the state? So now we've got some states that have limited their strict liability to only municipalities in the state. How about some states that have limited that strict liability to a dangerous dog? A dog that had previously bitten or had a predisposition to be dangerous. In fact, there are states that limit it to just that. Would that not be correct?
None of the 33 mentioned have that.
Well, trust me, Madam Vice Chair, there are states that limit it exclusively to dangerous dogs. But under the statute and under the conference committee proposal, it's not going to be limited to a dangerous dog, is it? It's going to be inclusive of every family pet in the state of Maryland. Is that not correct? Every family pet, not a dog that's ever been determined to be dangerous, but every family pet in the state of Maryland. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Are you aware of any states that limit the strict liability standard to an incident where the victim was carrying out a duty, such as a police for an injury takes place?
That's correct. And I made it very clear when I spoke about this bill earlier that other 33 states, none of the strict liabilities states are consistent and that they are all over the board. I made that clear.
So really, when you say that there are 32 other states that have strict liability, that would be somewhat of a misrepresentation in that what we did not include, Madam Vice Chair, was the list of all the states that have strict limitations on when that strict liability.
You know what? It's what I would have said had you given me the other.
Thank you. Madam Vice Chair. Yes, sir. On the bill. New York, the state of New York, has strict liability only for medical damages. Only for medical damages. Under the proposal that the judiciary and Madam Vice Chair. Now, under the language of the bill, could you clarify a couple of things for me?
I'll try.
My understanding is that the bill reads that we're dealing with strict liability where there is an injury. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So it's not limited, Mr. Speaker, just so the body fully understands. Under the Conference Committee version of this, liability is not going to be limited to just a dog bite. Not a dog bite, but a dog injury. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So under that definition, if, for instance, a child is walking past a yard where there is a dog enclosed in a fenced yard, and the dog runs towards the fence barking, the child is startled, spins away and falls and hits their head on the ground. There is now strict liability for the dog injury. Would that not be correct?
Not for a dog bark.
Madam Vice Chair, are you aware that there are already cases where there were findings in a state that used dog injury as opposed to dog bite? That very scenario where an individual was startled by a dog, tripped and fell, hit their head on the ground, and successfully sued the owner of that dog, whose dog was enclosed in a fenced yard, because their statute says strict liability for a dog injury, not a dog bite.
Not in Maryland.
And our statute.
Not in Maryland, and I would note that it's the exact same language that was used in the original bill regarding injury.
So now, are you aware that there was an instance in a state using that standard injury where a man who was on a ladder gets startled by a dog on a sidewalk barking, fell off the ladder, and was allowed to sue because it was not a dog bite, but a dog injury, and there was strict liability.
The question is, did it prevail? I don't know what the case. I don't know what state it is.
Let me enter this. Chairman of the Conference Committee, they explained what's in the Conference Committee. It is not her personal piece of legislation. If we could speak to what you like or dislike in that Conference Committee, I think that would be better.
I'm absolutely aware of that, Mr. Speaker, but I was trying to clarify because I'm not sure even the members of the House Judiciary Committee fully understand what was entailed in this Conference Committee report as it had never been presented to the committee. All right, I'll tell you what, Mr. Speaker, how about Madam Vice Chair? Thank you very kindly because I'll speak on the bill.
Would the gentleman yield for a question? Would the gentleman yield for a question?
Yes, certainly.
Did the gentleman serve on the Pitbull Task Force Committee?
Yes, I did.
Did the gentleman serve with me on the Pitbull Task Force Committee?
Thank you for asking. Yes, I did.
Did any of this information ever come to the Pitbull Task Force Committee?
No, it did not.
Did we ever take a vote on the Pitbull Task Force Committee about any of this?
Absolutely not.
Did we ever take a vote to support strict liability of the Pitbull Task Force Committee?
Absolutely not. And thank you for asking that. If the good delegate will just allow me to expand on
I'm sorry, I'm explaining your part for her.
I had actually inquired at the last of our meetings if the chair of that committee, our good friend who chairs the JTR committee across the hallway, if he would be willing to take a vote as to the members who were on the committee that would support strict liability or not. And he chose not to do so because amongst the House members, my understanding was there was only one member, and of the Senate members, it was still a minority of the members.
Did the good gentleman learn on television, as I did, what the outcome of our task force was going to be?
I learned on television and reading in the newspaper what the outcome of our task force was going to be without the input of the members of that House.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions, good gentleman.
Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman yield a quick question?
Absolutely. Yes,
Was I on that task force as well?
yes, you were, my good friend.
You know, I'm being lit up on Facebook. I'm sure my office is being lit up with phone calls, as there are many people, and they're asking me to support the compromise bill. Is this the compromise bill that came out of that task force?
Absolutely not. It reflects nothing in the way of a compromise whatsoever. What it reflects is the will and desire of our good friend across from the chamber next door.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Mr. Speaker, on the bill. Thank you. Folks, this bill is scary. And I'm going to tell you why. Under this bill, we have the following definition of an owner. An owner is a custodial parent or a guardian of a minor who is an owner of a dog. And here's the part everybody needs to focus on. It also includes a person who keeps or harbors a dog. Keeps or harbors a dog. Now, what does that include? There's certainly no definition of it, so I'll tell you what that means. Anybody who has a dog walker come take their family pet for a walk, and a stranger walks up and says, "Oh, isn't Fluffy really cute?" Reaches down, never asks if it's okay to pet the dog, reaches down and pets Fluffy, little bite on the hand. Guess what? They are going to court strict liability. And understand what strict liability means. There's no negligence defense. There is no negligence defense. You are strictly liable for that dog bite. Let's look at some of the other possibilities as to how that might play out. The babysitter comes over to take care of your children. The babysitter's there. couple of kids from next door come over and want to play. One of them falls accidentally on top of the little fox terrier. The fox terrier turns around and nips. Strict liability. No negligence, no contributory negligence, no provocation standard, strict liability. It's going to go to court. Period, end of story. What else could happen? I leave my dog with a neighbor. I go out of town for a couple of days. Would you be good enough to watch my dog? Certainly. My dog's in their backyard. Child comes over and puts his fingers through the fence. Dog takes a nip. Strict liability for my neighbor. Strict liability for the neighbor because they were keeping or harboring the dog. Is this what you all want to do to your constituents? Think about it. Is this what you want to do? But let's keep going through. I, from what I understand, am unaware that anyone on the conference committee, did any outreach to the chairman of the insurance subcommittee, the property and casualty insurance subcommittee, to find out if perhaps there might be some implications with regard to insurance underwriting in the state. Do you all think there might be some implications? Right now we have some of the top insurers in the state under our current standard that will not insure. They will not insure for dogs or specific breeds of dogs. What do you think is going to happen if we pass strict liability for every dog under every circumstance for every dog owner in the state? Okay. Folks, this isn't about serious dog mauling. I think we can all agree that serious dog maulings are horrific, and in virtually every instance, there is the opportunity to prove the case when it's a serious dog mauling. This bill would not help the circumstances with the Celesti case that brought all this about. There was a finding of liability in the Celesti case, just that the owners bankrupted and left the victims without anyone to go against, and that's when the landlords got pulled into this. This bill, as it exists before all of us today, is about applying strict liability across all breeds of dogs in virtually all circumstances. That means that most every dog fight, from the most minimal of fights to the most vicious of maulings, are going to court. The litigation floodgates have been thrown wide open, and whether the consequences of the departure from what has been a century's worth of standing is that we will have insurance companies creating exhaustive lists of dog fight exclusions from breed specific, the size of dog, and so on and so forth. This will not affect those who beat and mistreat their dogs to make them mean and aggressive. They're not worried about insurance. This bill will affect you, me, and every resident who has a dog as a family member. Homeowners will find themselves without any coverage or coverage they can no longer afford to purchase. What the courts did in Celesti, folks, was short-sighted and ill-conceived. This bill is that decision on steroids and does not reflect the best interest of our constituents, our residents, but exclusively those who will profit handsomely from the litigation and that's the trial lawyers. Thank you, Mr.